Everyone's been hyping up Valve's new game, despite the fact that it isn't even close to being finished. Deadlock is the next big thing. What the hell is Valve cooking? It's huge. There's tons of people making content about it, but I have been wondering, is it really that good? Or are people capitalizing off the hype for that delicious YouTube money? After all, every unfinished game has problems. Serious problems. So in this video, I'm going to sniff those problems out. At the same time, I'm going to try and see for myself, why are so many people playing this in-progress, dev-build, invite-only game? And is it worth your time? There are some pretty glaring problems that I think you should know about before you decide to start playing. The main thing that may or may not impact your gaming experience is that there are serious issues with this game's matchmaking system. Let me tell you about my atrocious personal experience with this. I won my first couple of games only because I got put together with incredible teammates. And then after playing 20 standard games, I got placed into the emissary rank. Going by a 30-minute average time per match, that means I got put into this game's equivalent of Platinum, or Master Guardian Elite, after 10 hours of standard queue experience. I remember it would move me up by 3 or 4 ranks on a single win. Bro, in Counter-Strike, even if you go 50-0, they move you up by 1 rank, or most likely, you don't even get a rank up. Maybe this has something to do with the hidden MMR from my Street Brawl games, and I understand that this jump-up system is there to combat smurfs, but this is genuinely busting my balls, because now it's refusing to rank me down. I have to play against people doing this shit! And then after I go 2-16, they shit-talk me! I know I'm bad. I don't know where the jungle camps are! This is all speculation. I don't know what's going on underneath the hood at Valve, but I'm certain that this company knows how to make a working matchmaking system. They own 2 of the largest competitive games on the market, Counter-Strike and Dota. So why don't they just copy-paste the matchmaking code over to Deadlock? I have 3 hypotheses for what's going on. I want to know your thoughts on this. Alright, number 1, they're doing this stuff on purpose to mess with me. Number 2, they're experimenting with engagement-optimized matchmaking, which could explain why everyone is playing matches that sometimes feel one-sided. Because the devs are doing it on purpose to engineer win-loss streaks, instead of having us play matches that feel even. Number 3, they're sabotaging or deliberately not fixing their matchmaking to keep player numbers down. This one is the most out there, but it makes sense. There's no monetization in the game yet, right? There's no skin crates or keys or hats or battle passes. There's no way for us to spend money to see Mina in a bunny suit or Abrams oiled up in swim trunks. There are also no retention mechanics in place. There's nothing in the game yet that gives players a secondary reason to log in every day, outside of playing the game for the fun of it. There's no meta progression. For example, account leveling or unlocking cosmetics and heroes, with the exception of ranked climbing, which, like I said, is completely busted. One genius thing that Valve does in their games is giving players random free item drops with a chance of getting something really good, like cases or skins in Counter-Strike.
Are you kidding me?
And weapons or hats in TF2. This intermittent reinforcement is a very good way to psychologically condition players to keep coming back. Also seen in things like gambling, social media, and abusive relationships. But, sadly, none of this is in Deadlock yet. This is one of the things that's causing the slow drop-off in players between major updates, because there's no Skinner box in place, conditioning people to come back and keep pressing buttons to get a treat. Or in other words, playing matches to get digital rewards. And it makes sense why. An extremely large returning player base for a game that isn't going to be monetized for a while is technically a liability for a business. So, Valve wants to do the opposite of prioritizing player retention. They have no reason to fix the matchmaking right now if they're just going to do it later when the game releases to the public, with monetization and meta progression in place. But it is Valve, and they have an infinite money printer thanks to Steam, and Valve likely isn't actually losing that much money because they have their own server infrastructure, instead of having to rent servers from AWS or Google Cloud. So, I don't really know what's going on, but that's what I think. The thing I like most about Valve is that they have always been pretty lenient with trash talking, which I think is a vital part of gaming. If you let everyone say whatever slurs and insults they want, then they're able to get it out of their system and live a more fulfilling life afterwards.
Kevin, this is your fault. You suck.
Same, but you suck really.
You suck. You suck.
You too, baby
You
cakes.
suck. You suck. Oh, I'm.
I would argue that this is a better option than the alternative. If you pull a Riot Games and ban people for saying something like, "I hate foids, kill all foids," then everyone will just bottle their emotions up, and resort to passive-aggressive sabotage, like running it down mid and feeding kills. Then you end up with a toxic cesspit, which repels future potential players because they've heard terrible things about your game. Should people insult others? Is it nice? No. But we don't live in a Teletubbies Sesame Street world, do we? For example, I was playing a game with Lash, who was angry that Rem, this blue rat on the enemy team, kept killing and then repeatedly dry humping him. This made our handsome mustache man so angry that he jumped the Rem under tower just to hump him back. Then he paused the match, which stops everybody from playing, to shit-talk him. Now keep in mind, we're in the middle of trying to push their base, but I kinda had to use the bathroom, so this was a good opportunity for me. I said in chat, "Okay, please keep talking," and then I left. The Lash decided to unpause the moment I got up from my chair. To make matters worse, immediately after the pause incident, the Rem killed him and teabagged him, again. People do abuse the pause feature in this game, either to line up a shot that they wouldn't have hit otherwise, or just because they think it's funny when they spam the button.
Yo, can we be for real? Oh my god.
Alright. This is the worst game I've ever played, bro. I don't think I've gone a single match without at least one forced pause. Well, when matches can last upwards of 1 hour, it's definitely a necessary feature. Going back to the trash talking, I think it actually makes the game better, because it holds everyone to a higher standard. If you get negative social reinforcement every time you play terribly, then you have an incentive to play better. Plus, the thing about trash talking is that it's a double-edged sword. If you're going to talk smack, then you better be on your A game, because if you get killed, then you can bet your life savings that the dude who killed you is gonna be on that keyboard. On the other side of the communication spectrum, to help pass the time, some people resort to role-playing.
Lash is understanding of the plights of the drifter. The Lash needs to head to the shop real quick. Lash is going for the bridge buff. The Lash is almost up with his ultimate ability.
I think they might be on the spectrum. I see this a lot, and they love doing it in all chat. Alright, let's move on to gameplay. The core game loop looks something like this. Spawn into your lane and shoot minions to get souls, which also has a cool aim training minigame built in. If a minion dies, it spawns a little soul orb which you can shoot after a small delay to either secure your own souls or steal your opponent's. These souls are the currency of Deadlock, and you use them to buy items. If you have more souls than your opponent, then you can buy stronger items than them, which means you will have the advantage in a fight. At the center of the enemy base is their patron, which you have to shoot and kill to win the game. There are 3 lanes leading to each patron, with robots guarding the path. Several features make Deadlock stand out from other MOBAs and shooters. An interesting thing Valve did was to lock item slots behind objective kills, so the players have an incentive to actually push, instead of doing absolutely nothing. There are also a bunch of movement options tied to your stamina bar. For example, double jumping, dashing, dash jumping, as well as normal movement options like wall jumping, sliding, mantling, and more. Instead of an instant recall that brings you back to base, Deadlock has ziplines. These are no longer instant, but they can be used both ways, either to help you retreat or get to lane faster. This increased movement speed means that the map is much larger than those in other MOBAs, both in area and in height. In other words, the map is very wide, plus there are plenty of rooftops and underground areas that fights can take place in. Deadlock is built in the Source 2 engine, and the movement will feel very familiar if you've played any of Valve's other Source games, like Counter-Strike or Team Fortress 2. The air strafing mechanics are exactly the same, so if you have a bunch of hours in KZ, Surf, or bunny hopping, then you will have an advantage in Deadlock. On the other hand, with crazy movement comes crazy CC. There are stuns, slows, knockups, snares, silences, sleeps, and more. This means that teamfights can be started and ended with one massive ability chain wombo combo. But first and foremost, it is a shooter, and shooters need satisfying guns. Deadlock has a relatively high time to kill, which means that the gunplay is mostly going to be tracking with hitscan weapons, or leading your target with projectile weapons, as opposed to flicking or snapping. All of the guns feel great. And I mean it when I say all of them, except for the burst fire weapons. There are 5 categories of gun in Deadlock. Fast firing hit scan, think machine guns. Slow firing hit scan like pistols and revolvers. Burst fire, shotguns, and projectile. Except, that's not true. I was lying. Every gun is a projectile weapon, like Fortnite snipers, except maybe Bebop's laser, and possibly Vindicta's ultimate. I was also lying about this game being primarily a shooter. It's not. It's actually a MOBA. The game feels like a MOBA that just happens to have guns. This is kind of an important distinction. When I first started playing, I thought Deadlock was going to be like the first-person shooters I've played before. If you shoot your opponent better than they can shoot you, then you win. So I picked a damage carry character, and I queued up expecting a gameplay loop that was at least somewhat similar to TF2, Overwatch, maybe even CS or Valorant. After the mandatory pause, I got to lane and started shooting. I immediately noticed that I did no fucking damage. The time to kill was insanely high. Combine this with the substantial reload time, plus the minions in each wave that heal you for a percentage of missing health, and it just feels like you're shooting at brick walls. I do no damage, even though I'm supposed to be playing a character whose entire purpose is to do damage. Now, that's the case if you treat the game as a shooter, but let's look at this from another perspective. In MOBAs, carries are designed to be weak early game and need farm to buy items to do damage. This means you have to play relatively passively and spend your time hitting minions. Farm in Deadlock matters more than technical skill. You, yes you, have perfect aim and are clearly better than all of your opponents and all of your teammates. However, if you fight someone with more farm than you, you will lose the fight because they have more items and better stats, even though the opponent sucks at the game and you are a gaming saint. The problem is, if you're used to shooters, this might be absolutely miserable. You can argue that kills in MOBAs have a larger impact on the game than kills in shooters do, because MOBA kills contribute to the team's economy, compared to shooter kills, which just takes people out of the game for a few seconds, or for one round. This means that the time to kill in MOBAs should be higher, because bodies are supposed to pay you. So why do the early game kills in Deadlock give you no money? Let's say you do kill your lane opponent in the first few minutes of a game. Congratulations, you get 250 souls. One minion gives you 116 souls. This amount is split between nearby players, and each lane is a dual lane, so let's round up and say you get 60 souls per player. This means one early game kill will give you the same amount of money as 4 minions, or 1 jungle camp. You can dominate the early game and get 5 kills, and still have less money than a 0-2-1 dude who spent their time hitting minions, jungle camps, and sinners' sacrifices. This is likely done on purpose to reduce the snowballing if someone makes a mistake in the laning phase. Kills and minions do go up in value as the game drags on. But what's the point of early game kills then? It can't be to reduce your enemy's farm, since the respawn times are so low early on, and you have a zipline with a speed boost that sends you back to lane instantly, plus there's a variety of catch-up mechanics. You know what? Why not just get rid of kills entirely? Make us invincible for the first 6 minutes, remove our guns, and then teleport us to a rice field so we can spend our time fucking planting rice for 116 souls per seedling. If the devs are going down the MOBA route and jacking up the time to kill, then shouldn't players be rewarded for an early pick like in Dota or League? Getting a kill is certainly more rewarding and satisfying than shooting minions. You know, there's this internal conflict in Deadlock where it feels like the system punishes early game wins and good gunplay to make it easier for losing teams to come back. Not just through catch-up mechanics like soul urns and stuff, but also with items that actively stop the succeeding players from being able to play. For example, anybody can buy counter items that cause stun, disarm, osteoarthritis, or damage reduction. Yes, losing teams can buy them to give themselves a chance, but winning teams can buy these too, and completely shut down the 1 or 2 players on the losing team that are leading the comeback. Why wouldn't you, if you had a soul advantage? Certain characters, like Seven, are borderline unplayable against coordinated players because they can easily obliterate you with a single item. If you try to counter the counter item and buy Unstoppable, which is double the price, then you'll be forced into a soul deficit and be straight up tickling people for the rest of the game. If you go for something cheaper, like Dispel Magic, too bad, because Seven can't use items while channeling his ult. And even if you could use Dispel Magic, it's on a 40-second cooldown, and you're gonna have to deal with the 2 other people that also bought the counter item. Anyways, let's get back to gameplay basics. There are 3 types of damage in this game: bullet, spirit, and melee. All characters have a unique gun which does bullet damage. Their abilities, generally speaking, do spirit damage, and melee attacks will do a little bit of melee damage, or a lot, if you hold the key down to wind up. This split, combined with the interesting assortment of items, means that you can build every character however you want. You want to dump your souls into weapon damage items on a caster? Why not? It's perfectly viable. Want to build this dog shit on Celeste as my lane duo and feed 15 kills to the enemy carries and lose us the game? Yeah, go for it. The interesting thing about items and builds is that they are very much team comp dependent. Yes, popular builds are a good choice, but I highly recommend swapping items out if you need to for a specific matchup. For example, let's say that there is a rather fed Haze on the enemy team who is investing heavily into her Bullet Dance ultimate ability. This does a lot of bullet damage. Maybe it would be a good idea to skip your next DPS item and instead buy something that literally makes you immune to bullets for 5 seconds.
Nice work.
Toxic patronizing aside, the second problem that Deadlock has is a more obvious one. The game is not finished. Right now, there are 38 heroes in the game, which is a lot when compared with Marvel Rivals' 33 heroes on release or Overwatch's 21. But when you compare the current roster to those in other MOBAs, you can see that there just aren't enough characters yet. Dota 2 had 108 heroes on release, League of Legends had 40, and Smite had 51. MOBAs need more characters to play than shooters do, for multiple reasons. The first is traditional shooters rely on multiple maps and game modes to keep things fresh. MOBAs rely on just one primary map for balancing reasons. To prevent that single map from getting boring, the variety has to come from the characters. With a large roster comes a massive number of possible matchups. This creates a completely different dynamic and challenge every time you queue up. Secondly, a MOBA has specialized roles for each team. For example, carries, bruisers, or supports. Deadlock is cool because the characters are pretty flexible, but generally speaking, a team will need to fill various roles to succeed, so developers need to provide plenty of options for each one. If, let's say, there were not enough gun carries with distinct playstyles in the game, then the role would feel incredibly repetitive. Most importantly though, MOBAs rely on microtransactions to turn a profit. MOBAs are usually free to play, because they need a massive player base to keep queue times short and matchmaking balanced. Their primary source of revenue is selling cosmetics, and in some cases, the heroes. A larger roster means a wider variety of skins can be made and sold. Also, releasing more heroes is the best way to bring players back into the game, driving engagement and sales. Basically, what I'm saying is, the hero roster is not fleshed out yet. Valve also seems to be working on a PvE mode. I'm guessing it's going to be something like Man vs. Machine from TF2, which is the greatest PvE mode of all time. Maybe this new game mode will give you something like the Deadlock equivalent of Bot Killer and Australian weapons. Looking at Deadlock's patch history, the next 6 or so heroes plus a major content update might be released sometime around July 2026. When you look at the existing roster, you can also see that many of the heroes are a work in progress. Sinclair is ugly as hell. Viper's pants clip through her legs. Yamato's chopped because her model is from back when the game had a cyberpunk theme. Shiv looks like a monkey, which might be intentional. Warden needs a rework. Viscus has visible rigging bones and uses the same movement and shooting animations as 2 other dudes. And Doorman looks like Germa. Just to put this out there, I think Celeste is a cool character. I genuinely like her design and color palette, because it reminds me of a discontinued flavor of Luigi's Real Italian Ice. Some character backstories are also not fully written. Let me be clear though, the more polished assets are absolutely beautiful. The stylized New York City environment is very nice. Everything has the timeless Valve cartoony look. They've got the Brooklyn Bridge, the Washington Square Arch, the Statue of Liberty, the green oxidized copper mansard roofs. It's delicious. By the way, the game is not optimized yet. To put things into perspective, I get 240 frames per second in Counter-Strike 2 on low settings. In Deadlock on low settings, I get anywhere between 60 to 90 frames per second, sometimes dropping down to 30, depending on what the game feels like giving me that day. Plus, there was a memory leak issue 2 weeks ago, where the game would start stuttering more and more the longer you play, until it bombed your computer, but I think that has been fixed. On a side note, the character design is top tier. If you really break down and look at the heroes, you can see that the character designers at Valve are truly distinguished, upper-class patricians. I can make a scientific argument for this. There was a recent study on male breast size preferences. 2 psychologists wanted to know the effects of male resource security on whether or not they like larger or smaller mammary glands. The research subjects were shown a series of animated female figures that varied only in breast size and were asked to rate their physical attractiveness. Their findings were: men from the lowest socioeconomic environment rated larger breasts as significantly more attractive than men from the medium socioeconomic environment. In turn, men from the medium environment preferred larger breasts more than men from the high socioeconomic environment. They also tested this on British men, comparing the preferences of men entering a campus cafeteria against the preferences of men who were leaving the cafeteria after eating. The study concluded that men from lower socioeconomic backgrounds and physically hungry men, so poor people, and people who didn't eat lunch or something, had a preference for larger chests. You could say that people who like larger breasts are broke peasant babies. The people working on Deadlock are clearly aristocrats. You can see this in their character design preferences. However, I regret to inform you, I am not aristocratic. Deadlock is in an early, closed alpha dev build right now, and judging by Valve's perfectionist track record, it probably won't be finished for a very, very long time. It's Valve after all, and Valve never misses. The problems I listed will likely all be fixed by the time this game goes into open beta. Please keep in mind that all of this criticism is coming from some dude comfortably sitting in his room, consuming a product while not even lifting a single grubby finger to actually help the devs out. Anyways, yeah, Deadlock is really good. The game isn't actually trash, it's just literally not finished yet, which makes certain parts of it feel like trash. If you're interested and want to play in the closed alpha, you can get an invite from the people on Deadlock's discussion board. They may or may not beg you for Steam inventory items afterwards. I gave the guy who invited me $10 worth of Counter-Strike cases. Hopefully that could clear up a little bit of the karmic debt I've built up from gooning so much. Thank you, Valve developers, for making another great game. They're working very hard. Alright, more videos are coming. See you around.